Carly Zakin and Danielle Weisberg, welcome to Build.
Thanks for having us. We're so excited to be here.
Such a cool studio.
Yeah, this is great.
Well, congratulations on all the tremendous success of theSkimm. You guys have had an incredible growth in the last 5 years since you launched in 2012, and some really exciting things coming up this year, which we'll get to. But before we do that, let's take a step back. Where did the interest and passion in the news emanate from? Did you grow up with a sort of a family tradition of talking about the news around the table or knowing what was going on in the world?
Yes, we did. I think...
Not together, but yeah.
Yeah, so we grew up in different places. I'm from Chicago. Carly's from here. But I think what we really had in common was an early love of news, and I think that came from our parents. I think our parents are really... Our families are similar in that you're expected to have an opinion. You're expected, even at a young age, when we were growing up, you're expected to participate in conversation, that if you're at the dinner table. I don't think either one of us was really viewed as, a kid that kind of didn't know what was going on. I remember my parents talking about Bill Clinton and the impeachment trials and asking me what I thought on some of it. But I think that we were really similar. We loved news from an early age. We loved storytelling. And that grew with us, the idea of always the expectation that you should know what's going on in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I would echo what Danielle said, and I think we both grew up with just news around us, whether it's the TV on or both of our parents got the papers delivered. And it's when I think about home, I literally think about hearing, the Times and the Journal drop at the front door, seeing my parents open it and who could get what section first. And I used to be late for school because I wanted to watch the Today Show and wanted to just watch Katie Couric. And we used to both watch 60 Minutes with our parents. So it was very much ingrained in our childhood. And from my earliest memory, I knew I wanted to be a magazine editor, and then I wanted to be on TV, and I wanted to just work in news. I wanted to be a storyteller. And I don't think I put that label on it, but that is basically what I had been describing my whole life.
And so let's talk about the genesis of the company. So both of you had your dream jobs at NBC as producers, and you jettisoned them for this dream of becoming an entrepreneur. What was the void that you saw in the news space that you thought you might be able to fill, and what did you understand about your target audience of young female women that you thought the other news outlets were missing?
So it was funny. We both got the jobs we wanted after college. And at NBC, we both interned all of college at NBC. We graduated school. It was 2008, and we entered, my first day at work was at CNBC the day Lehman Brothers went under. And so I literally watched, as we all watched, the world sort of changed at that moment. I also watched us cover it from a news perspective, and then in just the weeks and months after, see divisions start folding. And I think we both always grew up with, you want to be your boss. And when your boss doesn't necessarily have that job anymore, or your boss doesn't even really want that job anymore, it kind of it scares you a little bit. And so there's sort of two things happening as we kind of became friends and bonded over being in the same space, was that, one, we were seeing the career that we thought we were on this path that was set to have. And, we liked being planners, and we liked that there was no straying from the path. That path was completely blown up in front of us, and it was kind of figure it out on your own, figure out how you're going to make money. It's going to be a long way up. The second part was every day we worked really hard. We produced TV on traditional news channels and cable news. And every single day, our friends who are super smart and really well educated would ask us what happened in the world today. Every day we would be watch this at this time. And they're just tell me. And every day we'd be texting or calling, can you just explain what this is about? Or can you just tell me? And we were filling this void for our friends.
The company has always been about our friends. It's always been an audience company at its heart. That I think what we've always done best is know how to talk to our friends. And we saw that they wanted information, and they didn't have a news source that they trusted or a news source that they felt fit into their day-to-day. So that's what we created. I think it sounds, I was actually thinking when you asked the question that, here we are now with, 45 employees, Series B funded, and that it's really easy to think, okay, yeah, we're there, we did it. When we quit our jobs, we had no fallback plan. We had, you know, a couple.
What did your parents say?
So our parents thought we were crazy. We had these jobs we had worked for. You know, we worked crazy hours. We did everything. And then to quit, and this was before, like, you know, Silicon Valley was a TV show. It was basically before the idea of being an entrepreneur, having a startup was cool. And I think a lot's changed over the past 5 years. But when we did it, it was like we are turning our lives upside down. We had a faith that we knew we could talk to this audience. We've been doing it our whole lives. It's what we love to do more than anything. And we just knew we could do it. And there was really no proof to that when we quit, aside from just each other and you know, the ability to know that come hell or high water, we were going to get this company up and running and have it be successful. And I think at a lot of times that was all we had, was that determination.
And when did the fear and the panic and the nausea set in? Because I'm assuming there were some setbacks that you had to cope with along the way.
I thought you were going to ask when did it go away, and I was like, oh, never. Like, yeah, I still feel that.
Literally,
yeah.
to Danielle this morning, I feel like I'm going to throw up. Like, I mean, it hit right away. Danielle, like, was hysterically crying when she quit. Like, her boss didn't know she was quitting.
My boss is like, I think you're giving your 2 weeks notice, but I can't understand through the tears. Like, can you just confirm you quit?
I was just, like, on such an adrenaline rush, and, like, then we went on TV, and I was dry heaving on the bathroom floor. So nervous, and Danielle literally stood above me, and she's like, get up now. She's like, we have to go. And I was just like, okay. And like, that was pretty much like the metaphor of our existence, which is like, there was no time. There was no time to think about what if this doesn't work. There was no time to freak out. And we were honestly so excited, and we believed in this so much. Like, to this day, like, I've never experienced before theSkimm, and I haven't experienced it since, of believing in something so strongly that there was just no talking me out of it. And it was an irrational belief at the time, but like, it was an out-of-body experience that, like, I just feel like we were meant to do this.
But then I think we saw it from our community, like, right away. So I think that the idea of quitting your jobs and starting something really resonated with people. And in the beginning, and I think still true today, that for a lot of people, that's what they love about the brand. So on those days when I think the nerves and the anxiety and the no's overtook a lot of things, we would then check our founder's inbox and see these amazing messages from people saying, like, they had what they called a skimm moment of going into a meeting and talking about North Korea for the first time, and it was an out-of-body experience. And that is, I think, for our community, kept us going during those dark times, and just seeing the traction. Like, numbers don't lie.
Because you had to convince investors that content was the direction things were going. I mean, it's similar to the AOL story, where it was going to become a content company, and so many people said, oh, no one wants content. And that was, 7 years ago. So you were kind of ahead of the curve in terms of understanding what your audience was going to want.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, Daily Candy was about to shutter. So it had already been purchased by Comcast, and was literally going to close like 6 months after we started. We saw there had already been this wave of like first email newsletters that had sort of like died off. And then there was no investments happening in content. We started taking meetings with people who across the board were like, people just don't want to invest in content. Like, we definitely got feedback, this is a dumb idea, that women don't need different news, nor do we think that they do. We were told that women were a niche market, which is like laughable. But we really got feedback that was like, this is just like not in my investment thesis. I don't do content, I don't do media. Those businesses are very hard to scale. And to this day, like, we've never even thought about ourselves as a content company. Like, we call ourselves a membership company, but that's like our buzzword. But I think what we're really about is like storytelling. And I think we've seen since then how the tide is totally turned about what not only the venture world wants to invest in, but actually what people are identifying as companies that have scaled. And like, what we like to say is like, we're intimacy that's scaled.
Well, it's interesting. Let's talk about the membership, because you have this amazing community called the Skimbassadors. What did that start out as originally, and how have you grown and cultivated that community?
So it started off as just a pen pal relationship. We would have these people when it was just the two of us working from our living room couch. We would have emails come in every day saying, I love this, I hate this, change this, and we would respond. And I think people were so shocked that someone responded. And at the time, we were like, well, I mean, of course we're going to respond. People are taking their time. We're brand new. But that actually has stayed as we've scaled. You know, we invested in customer service. We made sure that there's someone always answering the emails, that we look at them. That's something the community is really core to our company, because a lot of the times just they were what kept us going with their anecdotes, but also with their power. So our Skimbassador program started off as people saying, I love this, and then we would go to an advisor and say, like, what do we do with all these people writing in? And they would say, well, have you ever thought about asking them to share this game with 5 friends? And we're like, no, that's really obvious, and yeah, that would be a good idea. So we did that, and they would write back and say, I did that, what next? And so we were like, okay, can you share it with 10 friends? And that evolved over time to our Skimbassador program, which is now over 20,000 people who combined have brought in about 19% of our user growth each year. So they are a force from, you know, an acquisition perspective, but they're also our focus group. They are our biggest champions. We have a Facebook group with them that we're in all day long, talking about things from how do I ask for a raise, to what workouts do you like, to, you know, I got married and I'm thinking about changing my name, all of these different things that really follow us as we go through different life events. And then actually as part of our No Excuses campaign, which is a huge marketing push for the company, we started around the election and became one of Rock the Vote's biggest partners ever, got over 120,000 people registered to vote. And our Skimbassadors...
That's amazing, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our Skimbassadors were a driving force behind that and behind really getting out the conversation and the thought starters about being a community that is made up of people that have all different political beliefs, that who can still talk to each other and have a conversation. And I think that's something that's becoming more and more rare.
And how is the No Excuses campaign now evolving post-election?
Yeah, so we came up with the platform of No Excuses as how do we kind of encapsulate all of the things that you can't make an excuse around to not be civically engaged. And then we realized after the success around the registration that this was a marketing platform for us to build off of. And so we created this knowing that we would take on issue by issue over a certain period of time and really do a deep dive with our audience, getting rid of any excuse that they would think that they have around not engaging around this topic. So the first one we chose for 2017 was immigration. We had a gut feeling that immigration was something that was going to come up early in the news cycle. Obviously, we all know it did. So our timing was really great. But what we did is we first surveyed our audience, like, what are the issues you care about? Early in January, they said immigration was 9 out of 9. Immediately after the executive orders came down, immigration jumped to top 3. And so we knew that, like, okay, like this was confirming what we thought. We developed a whole curriculum around everything, every word you needed to know about immigration, all the vocabulary that goes along with it. We created a citizenship test that hundreds of thousands of people have taken on our site to just understand what goes into the pathways of becoming a citizen. And then we actually did, we hit the road, and we did a road trip. We went to about 6 different markets, curating dinners with our Skimbassadors, where we flew them to wherever we were. We did them about like 15 at a time. We brought people who disagreed with each other. We brought people who were undocumented immigrants. We brought people who lived in border towns. We brought people who were former military members. We brought people that work in Republican politics, professional Democrat politics. And we said, okay, this is what we all agree on, and we're going to talk about the things we all disagree on. And by the end of the dinner, you had no idea who supported what side. Every single person said it changed their life. And you really, it changed your opinion on at least one thing. And it was probably the most special experience we've had personally. Forget just like being a part of the Skimm. But what we saw was that post-election, no matter who you supported and what you felt about the election, everyone woke up on November 9th and felt like they were in a bigger bubble than they started with. And their Facebook feed felt something different than their friend's Facebook feed, and people are commenting, you know, I'm unfriending so-and-so because I can't hear what they have to say about this candidate. And that's not helpful to anybody. And like it really annoyed us that people, the response to political divisiveness has been building out a bigger echo chamber for yourself. And so we felt that it's our duty to get people to understand those that disagree with each other. And so that's really what No Excuses has been about, which is understanding bigger issues. And from those bigger issues, then understanding what people disagree about and understanding the other side.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Let's talk about the culture at Skimm, because you have talked a lot about culture. There are many successful male famous entrepreneurs like Bill Gates and Paul Allen, Tim Cook and Steve Jobs, Larry and Sergey. And women have gotten a bad rap for not being able to work together. We compete rather than collaborate. How have you two had such a successful partnership? And what are you doing at the Skimm to cultivate a culture of positive collaboration?
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that, the two of us were friends first, and then we were roommates, and then we were business partners, so we didn't jump into this overnight. And I think I have a lot of good friends. There are very few that I would go into business with. And I think Carly and I both went into this with the same goals, starting from the same place in life, putting everything professionally and at a lot of times everything personally that we had into the company. And because of that, we always had the same definition of success. And I think having a partner that you go into a relationship with thinking of it like a marriage, like there's no out for us. We're definitely in it. And I think that is a promise that we made to each other. And of course, there are times when we disagree. Of course, there are times where we have differing opinions on how we're going to reach something. But at the end of the day, we've always had the same goal, and I think that is the most important part. And the way to reach the goal is to have a solid partnership. So nothing comes in between us. We tell each other everything. It's not our team's job to make sure that we're informed. It's our job to make sure that we're always talking to each other. And as the company changes and opportunities change, that we are always keeping each other apprised. And I think when we've seen partnerships go awry, it's because they don't have that equal footing, because they don't have that conversation between the two of them when they start. And for us, it's always been the most obvious and the easiest part of what we do. And I think that it's been interesting having that collaborative nature being the foundation for the company, because we've always said to our team that you have to be collaborative. We're not siloed. But I think actually a lot of it comes from the fact that we talk to each other all day long. There's no good cop, bad cop. And we make decisions by bouncing things off of each other. And I think if you see that at a leadership level, then it has to kind of trickle down as we bring new employees in. That's the expectation, that when you have a great idea, see what everyone else thinks.
And you do that carefully, right? You have everyone talk to a prospective employee when they come in.
Yeah, so every single employee we bring in not only talks to multiple other employees, but actually does a homework assignment. So every single person. We've never hired someone, I don't believe, who hasn't done one. And it's more to see, do they, you're going to put your best foot forward in the interview process. So if you're not getting something in on time or taking pride in it in the interview, what are you going to be like when you feel less pressure to impress? For us, every single person not only goes through that process, but also goes through a really, really careful onboarding process that we know everything about this character of Skimm Girl that we have created. We know what she orders to drink on Friday versus Saturday. We know her brunch order. We know her relationship history. We know everything about her, and it's not because it's one of us. It's a character we've created, and every single person on our team, whether they are a developer, whether they are a writer, whether they are our assistant, has to know the same. And so we have a really, really in-depth onboarding process that I think really drives home our culture.
So you guys are really busy informing your audience and informing, the larger world. How do you keep yourselves informed? What's on your nightstand and what do you read?
We both actually just are finishing Sheryl Sandberg's new book, Option B, which I think...
our nightstand with tissues.
Yeah. But that's definitely, I think we try to read a lot, and I feel like I love actual books. It's relaxing to me, picking something up at night, and it gives me a good break from the day. But I think we're always reading. It's funny that when I go on vacation, I read newspapers, and that is my this is a vacation reading schedule instead of when I'm in the office and I'm looking online all day long.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I think we're both very similar. The funny thing is for news, I have no idea what Danielle reads, and she has no idea what I read. We've never shared like what our daily news diet is, other than like the basics. And that's part of what I think has kept our story selection really fresh. Is like, you know, there's categories that we make sure we both read in, but we really don't share reading lists.
Any advice to all the entrepreneurs that admire the work that you've done and the success you've had of how to take a kernel of an idea and turn it into a company?
I think it's know what you're good at. I think there's a few types of entrepreneurs that have come to us for advice that I'm like, you're going in the wrong direction. And like one category is people who they see a void in the market, and the market is not their area of expertise, and they're going to just like place someone to run that. And I'm like, okay, that's like one way to solve it. But like, let's say you're a really amazing operator, but you're not a visionary founder. Like, you need to find a company then where you can be an operator versus someone who is an idea machine but like can't operate. I think that's one. I think the other is like we see other entrepreneurs who are kind of trying to prove that they can do all of the jobs. I think one of the things that was very humbling that we learned very early on is like, raise your hand when you don't know something. And I think that's actually what we're best at. Like, we raise our hand all day long. Anyone who knows us from like as like a mentor to us, we have a lot, will tell you like, yeah, they're gonna call you a lot or email a lot with like, and text a lot with like, I don't know how to do this. How do you say this? Like, you know, walk me through this negotiation. Like, let's role play, because we haven't done it before. And I think when people try to hide the fact that they're like, you know, here's my fancy business school degree and now I know how to operate. It's like, well, no, you don't. And it's okay. Like, I didn't either, but don't pretend you do.
I think the other thing too is as startups become, you know, starting your own business becomes this glorified thing. I think that is great, but I think that anticipate how hard it's going to be, because as much as you think it's hard, it's going to be 10 times harder than you ever could have imagined. And I think people, when they hear our story today, I love that they feel inspired, and I love that they think they can start something from their couch. And I think if we can do it, anyone can do it, because we had no formal training for anything that we've picked up along the way as far as tech or business skills. But I think it's really about love your idea and make sure you're committed to it, because every day it's going to be a new challenge, and you have to know that going in.
Great. So let's throw it out for some Q&A.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. I was wondering, what have you guys learned from each other working so closely together?
Danielle, do you want to go first?
Well, I think actually, so when we went for our first round of funding, our seed round, I think every stage of investment is kind of about a different thing they're looking for in the business. The seed round was really about investing in the two of us and our vision. And we heard no hundreds of times. We kept a spreadsheet, we still have it, of people that have said no. Everyone is in red. And it's actually been fun. Some people have come out on our Twitter feed lately saying that they've made a mistake, which is really nice. And we appreciate seeing that. But, you know, when we found Homebrew, who led our seed raise, we were kind of at the point where we'd heard no from so many people, it didn't mean anything anymore. And the last point in their interview process was to have us come out to meet them in San Francisco. And we were there for lunch. And they said, can you order for each other? Do you know what she's allergic to? Do you know what she likes? And we were like, obviously, we're roommates. We live together. We spend more time together than anyone ever has. This is really easy. And I think that was, that is our day-to-day. And that is, I think that was such a great test. And I really had so much respect for them, because they went the step further of actually running us through kind of an experiment to see how we get along each day.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have very similar skill sets from like a resume. If you look at our resume, like you can do the exact same things, but I think we have different execution styles. And I think it's interesting because I think we both have become businesswomen through this, so it's fun to sort of see the other become that. And I've seen like Danielle become very pragmatic and very organized in like her thought process, where I don't think I would have said that about you a few years ago. Yeah.
No.
But like, I mean, not about me either, but I feel like I've watched you have a confidence in like your thought process, which is nice to see. Do you want to say something?
Well, you started so
you
young.
wanted to say something about you. Okay, yeah. I think that I think that I've learned that you need positive reinforcement. No, I'm joking. I think that you've become a really strong manager. And I think one of the things that I've always trusted in Carly as a friend is to tell me the truth. And I think seeing that same philosophy applied to her management skills has been great. And I think it's something that our team really respects.
Thank you very much.
Good question. Okay.
Hi, ladies. So I actually look forward to my Skimm emails every morning. So I'm just curious, we're living kind of in a really strange political climate right now where there's really no shortage of a headline. So how do you prioritize what you include in your emails?
I think that we've had to write about politics a lot because it is what everyone is talking about, and I think everyone wants to stay up to date on what's going on with this administration, or just in the world as it relates to Syria or as it relates to corporate tax rates. So I think we've had to write about politics a lot day in and day out lately. We really enjoy writing about things like what's going on in Venezuela. Those chances for us to be able to cover stories that are a little bit different or are picking up steam, we love. And that's gotten to be less in this political environment right now. We're hoping that, I think like anything, it'll ultimately go back to that as I think, we get past the 100-day mark. But our story selection has always been consistent, meaning we look at the idea of our audience is already smart. They probably already read a lot of things or at least know everything about their industry. And so we want to make sure that they feel confident talking about whatever is kind of in the zeitgeist. So if you're at a dinner and you're seated next to 10 people that work in different industries, we want you to be able to have a conversation with them on a variety of things. If they work in education, you should be able to talk about that. If they work in sports, be able to talk about that. And I think what we saw when we started the company was this trend towards personalization. And I think that's great, and a lot of companies do it well. But we saw that it was taking away from the idea of just being a generally informed and well-read person. And I think that's something that we give our audience.
Okay, I think we have time for one more.
Hi, over here. I have two questions. I'm wondering, as entrepreneurs, do you ever feel settled in your role, or do you just kind of get comfortable? And my second question is, how do you deal with fact-checking in this kind of fake news epidemic?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first question first. So the answer is we never feel comfortable. One of our advisors actually told us, she's like, you should always feel a little bit uncomfortable if you're doing your job right. And I can say we are probably doing our job right because we feel uncomfortable all the time.
That made me feel so much better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's been so many times where I'm like, oh, after the election, things will calm down. After summer, things will calm down. It's never calmed down. The stresses have changed, the stakes have changed, but this is a roller coaster. And we say that to our employees. We're like, burnout is a real thing we care about, and we really try to do everything we can to avoid in ourselves and our employees. But I think once you get into the comfortable zone, you're probably not at a startup. And it's funny you asked this because I literally over the weekend was like, is there any company that can successfully say they are comfortable? And I can't think of one. And if they are, they probably should be nervous. So yeah, that's that.
Fact-checking, I think we've always had a pretty rigorous fact-checking process. We look for two sources. If something is an exclusive and it's from one source, we try to always call it out and link to that exclusive. I think that for us, the question that you're getting at is a lot about trust. I think, we are, for a large percentage of our audience, we are their primary news source. And that's something that we take really seriously. I think that we are also, if you look at the landscape of media companies or media startups out there, we are the only one backed by journalists. Like, we are former NBC News producers. We learned from the best in the business. We started this company because we loved news. And I think that's very different from a lot of companies out there, that we come from a place of journalistic integrity from the very beginning of how this company was formed.
Thanks. Well, thank you again for being here and for building a company that has so much value to so many people. We really enjoyed talking with you.
This was fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.